Welcome to the It Ain't Wrong to Be Strong podcast series brought to you by fit Athleisure. My name is Rob James. I'm the host of the series. I'm also the CTO and founder of fit Athleisure. We're a constant reminder to stop drifting from one distraction to the next and start living with definiteness of purpose. We're a constant reminder that giving up, giving in and taking a backward step is never an option. Now that should be your mindset when you're out there chasing after your own hopes, dreams, goals and ambitions, because nobody's coming to save you and nobody cares. It's on you to make shit happen and get shit done. fit Athleisure is a mindset, an attitude and a code of living. In today's episode, I want to talk about something called the Circle of Five. And if you didn't already know, that's what the Olympic rings symbolize. So it comes from an ancient pact where 5 nations in the Northern Hemisphere, and I can't remember what date it was because I wasn't really worried about the minor details at the time. I was more worried about the lesson because I found this really interesting. And it was 5 nations back in the ancient world that came together, and we're talking about places like France, England, Rome. I don't think it was those countries in particular, and it may have been some of them, but we're talking about these Northern Hemisphere countries and the very developed countries compared to Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and places like that. So they all came together, and it was as much a military strategy as much as it was looking out for each other and, being buddies and trading partners and things like that. It was a very interesting story that I read. Now, you won't find this on Google. Maybe you will. I actually haven't looked for it because I didn't find it on Google. Your history teacher at school won't tell you about this because they don't want you to be educated on things like this. It helps men to level up and they start winning, achieving and succeeding. And they become strong and, we can't have that. We can't have strong, masculine men running around who know what the fuck they're doing because the government doesn't like that. Anyway, so we move on, and that's basically where it comes from. It's a very ancient pact and it's all about helping each other win, achieve and succeed. And that's the short story. Now, we need to take a look at that story as masculine men in modern day society and say, how the fuck can we start doing that in our own life? And we can, and we should be. But we take a look at these lessons and we forget about them, or we don't understand, they're just 5 rings and they're beautiful colours, all joined by the black ring in the centre and all that kind of stuff. But it's very important that everybody knows what's going on. It's very important that you know what the 5 rings symbolise, and it's a circle of 5. So we can do that, and we should be doing it. And there's a couple of rules when it comes to having a circle of 5, and I want to talk about those in a little bit more detail today. And the first thing I want to talk about is this. You need to understand that when you invite people into your circle of 5, or you go looking to, maybe you've been invited into one, you have to have a look and you say, hey, is this the kind of group that everybody is on the same frequency? And what I mean by frequency is you have to make sure that everybody is on the same page when it comes to values, principles, and standards. And I always talk about these kind of things because it's very important. It's strength and depth of character. So everybody in the circle of 5 has to have strength and depth of character. So everybody is on the same frequency. And before I move on, you can write these down, and I highly recommend that you all write these, or it's written. Somebody knows where it is, and everybody signs it. So everybody is aware of the group rules. So going back to the first one, so it's all about all the men in the group being on the same frequency. Now, it's very important that they are men, because this isn't something where you invite a couple of chicks and then they're hot and it's something you look at when you're having a few whiskeys and playing cards, right? It's not about that. It's not that kind of group. It's a circle of 5 men, you and 4 other brothers. And that's why you all have to be on the same frequency. You have to be moving in the same direction. The group talks about things like investing, personal growth, leveling up, business, entrepreneurship, crypto. We're talking about everything that helps you win, achieve, and succeed in life, creating opportunities, cars, and I'm not talking about, hot rods and just your everyday doing burnouts and shit like that. I'm talking about things that help you go to the next level. Maybe you all like BMWs in the group, and somebody can say, hey, look, next year, let's all try and work towards getting us a BMW, or a Merc, or whatever it is that you want. But I'm not talking about, doing burnouts and hooning around when I talk about cars. I'm talking about, we're talking about leveling up here, right? But yeah, it's the kind of group where you don't gossip, and that's important. You all have to be on the same frequency. No gossip, no gambling, because it just ends up spiraling downwards when it starts gambling. And I've heard of groups out there, and it starts as a small group of men, and they kick back every Friday night, talk about the wife, and then it becomes a gossip session. Next minute there's strippers, and there's cocaine, there's whiskey, there's gambling and money and cars and cards, and it just goes back to square one. What the fuck are you all doing together? You're just doing the same shit you did out of the group. So that's probably another thing that you can write down, is that there's none of this sort of shit. You're not talking about, you don't want strippers in there, and it's not about being distracted, and it's none of that shit. Okay, if you want to do that, go to a strip joint with your circle of five, but don't have it in your group. It's a place where you talk about leveling up, personal growth, development, investing, business, entrepreneurship, crypto, shares, real estate, opportunities, whatever it is that you think that it's necessary to talk about when it comes to personal growth and development. But that's it. All members of the group have to be on the same frequency. Now, otherwise, you're going to have a high turnover of staff. And I like to call it a high turnover of staff because it's like kids working at KFC. Every second week, there's somebody resigning or being sacked. And it's not a good look. But hey, you're talking about 16-year-old kids here, right? So you don't want that in the group. It's very important from the get-go that everybody is on the same page on every level about everything. And that way, nobody's going to throw each other under the bus. You're going to look out for each other. You've got each other's back. You admire each other. It's a brotherly love. It's brotherhood. It's all that stuff. It's close. It's a close bond. But most importantly, you don't bring your problems into the group. And there's nothing more draining than when you are surrounded by 4 other men or 10 other men, whatever it is that you've got a party going on, a group or whatever, but somebody in the group's always whinging, bitching and moaning about the wife, about the kids, about having no money. That's not the kind of men that you bring into the group. Okay, so it's not a place that you come and start bitching and moaning about the same old shit. And it goes back to the first rule. It's about having the right kinds of men in the group. Everybody is into personal growth and moving forward and building each other up. And everybody's on the same frequency when it comes to values, principles, and standards. That's pretty much it on that topic. Another important one is that you need to be of value. I think I spoke about it just a second ago, but everybody needs to be of value. You need to bring things to the group. You need to be a specialist in something. You need to be somebody doing something. You need to have stature. And what I mean by stature is not height. I'm talking about reputation gained through ability or achievement. You need to be something. You need to be good at something. And it doesn't matter what that is. Every group's different. You can be a great PT. You can be a sensei. You can be a martial arts instructor. You can be this. You can be that. Be good at something so that you can provide value to the group. And you're not sponging off everybody. So if you've got 4 other men who are good at something and you're just in the group for shits and giggles trying to hope, that you get ahead and you might get some inside information and you can, make a bit of money here and there. That's not the kind of group. It's a place where you provide value. You don't sit back and lurch and because if your brothers are doing the heavy lifting, then what are you doing there? They're going to get sick of you and get rid of you, and then it's all of a sudden there's a high turnover of staff again. Now, if you're the kind of person who's creating the group, and you're the leader of the group, so to speak, and then you're inviting people into the group and they keep getting ejected and they'll lose trust in you because you're making bad judgments all the time. So again, it comes back to who's in the circle of 5. You all have to be on the same frequency. So surround yourself with men who make good judgments. Because at the end of the day, if you're not making good judgments, you're not going to have good outcomes. You're not going to have good relationships with people. You're going to be constantly surrounded by drama and chaotic people. So they're the kinds of men that you want in your group. And there we have it. So it's be of value. It's very, very important that you are. Otherwise, you're just going to find yourself, shit canned. I think they're all important, but this is another important point. And what is brought up in the group and what you speak about in the group stays in the group. And if you're the kind of man who comes and joins a group and you all sit back on a Friday night and you're talking some epic shit, and then you go home and tell the wife, or you go home and tell the kids, or you go to work on the Monday, and you talk shit with everybody at lunch and saying, hey, this group of guys, and then one guy in there, he's got this, and this going on, he's a dickhead or whatever, you know, you'll bring yourself undone sooner or later. So again, it all goes back to the very first point. You've got to make sure you surround yourself with the right kind of men. But it's important that what is brought up in the group and what you speak about stays in the group. No exceptions, no fuck-ups, nothing. It's a pact. And equally, you don't come into the group and whinge and bitch and moan. Okay, don't bitch and moan about your kids, your wife, you lost money, you're broke, your car's fucked. Whatever it is that you talk about, it's not providing value. So, you know, that's important. What you talk about in the group stays in the group. It's a written and an unwritten rule. But like I said at the beginning of this podcast episode, make sure that when you create your circle of five, you write these little points down and everybody signs the piece of paper. It's just a great way to keep everybody accountable at the end of the day. And then if somebody fucks up, you can go back to the rule and you can say, hey, look, this was the pact that you signed, okay? And if you give them 1, 2, or 3 chances, whatever it is as part of the rules, part of the group membership rules, then whatever. But usually it's one strike and you're out. So, you know, that's basically, you know, what you should be doing, writing it down and making each other accountable. Because it's not just about good times. It's about keeping each other accountable and being honest and being able to say it to each other. Say, hey, look, man, you're fucking up. You're drunk every night that you turn up or whatever it is. You got to hold each other accountable to what's going on so that you can all keep moving forward. And you know that the men in your group have your back. If you're going through a rough patch and you keep talking about shit, they're going to pull you up and say, hey, stop talking about your shit or go down the road and join the It Ain't Weak to Speak movement. But here we don't do that shit. You know, if you want to sit around and talk about your problems, go join a mother's club that sits around at the coffee club at 10 a.m. every morning talking about their husbands, because that's what women do. They sit around and talk about their problems. Men come together in a circle of five and you're all about solving your problems. But there we are. Make sure you all write these rules down and you all abide by them. You know what they are. Everybody signs the piece of paper. Now, the rules are different for every group. There's no right or wrong. You just make sure that it's pretty much the group is all about leveling up. It's personal growth and development. No whinging, bitching and moaning. No snitching. No high turnover of staff. But, you know, that's all it in a nutshell. Just make sure that you surround yourself with 4 other men who get life. They're out there trying to level up. They're winning, achieving and succeeding, or at least they're trying to. And they're doing their very best to do that instead of drifting from one distraction to the next, you know, in hypnotic rhythm, doing nothing and going nowhere. And that's not what we're here to do, guys. So there you are. There's the circle of 5. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Keep winning, men, and I'll check in with you again soon. Cheers.